to call this meeting of the Economic Improvement Corporation to order. First order of business is the invocation. I understand Mr. Wilson is going to lead us in that.
Everybody bow. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings of this day. Father, we especially thank you for this good rain that we're having in the hill country. We ask you to bless this meeting. May it be for the glorification, edification for your kingdom's growth. We ask that it be business, professional, and make the decisions that will associate with our city and make our city what it should be and continue the growth that we have. We ask all of these things in Christ's name and for his sake. Amen.
Amen.
Great prayer.
Item number 1 is the Visitor Citizens Forum. Any citizen with business not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the Economic Improvement Corporation. No deliberation or action can be taken on these items because the Open Meetings Act requires an item to be posted on the agenda 72 hours before the meeting. Visitors are asked to limit their presentations to 3 minutes. Understand we have a speaker?
Yes. I'm Gerry Wolf, and I live at 509 North Buckboard. I was talking with some friends of mine about EIC board and how you conduct your business and so forth. And the question came up about really the direction or the guidelines that you have to live with, I guess, by state law. I was curious, do y'all receive any training on the fine points of the state law, what you're allowed to do and what you're not doing? Allowed to do, not to be able to do?
We have an orientation, we have a manual that's provided to us that goes through, and then we all have to attend or take the Open Meetings Forum Act so that we know how to conduct the business and not violate the Open Meeting Act.
Has everyone here received that training?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, just my curiosity. Thank you.
Good question.
No question. Good question. Anybody else want to speak? Move on to item number 2, the approval of the minutes. I hope you all had an opportunity to review the meeting, the minutes from the last meeting on July 18th. If so, I'll entertain a motion to accept them as presented.
I so move.
I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. Monthly reports.
Your monthly reports ending July 31st. For your operating fund, you had an opening cash balance of $4,260,228, with income for the month of $250,538, with expenditures of $97,311, leaving you an ending cash balance of $4,413,455. On the following page is the breakdown that shows your annual budget, current month expense, year-to-date expense, and your remaining balance. The following page is your sales tax revenue analysis. And you'll see that we're right on target for budget to actual, and you're at 3.59% of 2016 over 2015. In your capital funds project, your beginning cash balance is $1,115,812. You had no income. You had expenditures of $196, leaving you an ending cash balance of $1,115,616. The following page is the breakdown of the projects that you have funded, again with your ending cash balance of being $1,115,616. At the bottom of the page shows the current balance of the Rivers Trail project that's funded by EIC as of July 31st. And then on the following page is your cash and investments, showing the placements of where your funds are and the interest earned for those funds for the month. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 3B, projects update.
Alrighty, so the Kerrville Sports Complex property transfer actually happened about a little over a week ago now. So the city actually now owns that 105 acres. So we're willing to work. So the grading work that you see now is under the city's contract, and so that project is probably about 6 months. But we've got 3 other contracts that will phase in over time. So all that's been awarded and approved, and we're moving forward. So hopefully this weather doesn't slow us down too much further. But we're scheduled to be open and ready for play in that July-August timeframe of 2017. So that means grass has grown in, facilities are there, everything's ready to play and ready to go. The Kerrville Tennis Center, we are in the process of contacting architectural and engineering consultants to look at the scope of work that we had proposed out there. One of the key considerations is drainage for that site, and so we really need to get an idea about how the grading works, how the drainage is working, and then begin to get some costs pulled together for what those design fees may be. And so ultimately we plan to come back to you guys to request some dollars for fiscal year 17. So in the draft budget that we have that'll go to council at our next meeting, y'all have included in there the first of 2 allocations, fiscal year 17 at $750,000. So this design would utilize a portion of those funds.
We have that same amount for 17 and 18?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. So there's a total of $1.5 million over the next 2 fiscal years that would cover that. So we're putting that together. We'll be coming back to you if council authorizes us to make an application.
I've been out there a couple of times since you resurfaced it, and the response has been overwhelmingly positive.
Well, I will say the other 10 courts that were out there look pretty good, but now you see the new one, it's kind of
Yeah.
like, we need to do those.
Hard to compare.
Let's go back to the newer ones.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like putting a new fender on an old car, isn't it?
Mhm.
Doc, what are we talking about as far as dollars?
For the tennis center,
Yeah.
we've got $1.5 million earmarked for
Oh.
that project.
Does that include design costs?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Kerrville Aquatics Center, remember we've got $100,000 that we have set aside in projects. So we have been talking to several different consultants to get an idea about scope of work and the types of work that we may need to look at for that facility. Again, the idea is that we're doing an analysis of our aquatic center, an analysis of our community to kind of look at what our market or what our needs actually are, and then to look to develop a recommendation, to the community on what type of aquatic center system or facilities we may need. So anyway, so we're in the process of talking to and really dialing down to one specific consultant to give us a scope of work that, again, we can kind of come back and request some funding.
Just as clarification, KICD is still part of that conversation, are they not?
Yes, yes, they are. So we'd had an early conversation with them when we were talking about the aquatic center, because if they decide to participate and they want to utilize that facility for competition, it's an entirely different level of type of facility that we might otherwise do. A lot of cities are moving towards more recreational swimming types of facilities, and so but we'd hate to lose a deep water well for diving, which is becoming more and more of a regional type of asset. A lot of pools are going away due to cost, and particularly diving wells, because there's just not a lot of demand for those facilities and they don't cash flow, like you'd want to. So anyway, so just don't want to lose any of those assets if there's a need to be able to utilize those.
I know we're talking about surveying our citizenry, but is this something we need to include in that survey, that, what our neighbors want as far as that Olympic pool goes?
Yeah, I think, and I got to go back and look, because I think our draft document talks about quality of life types of things. We have an opportunity to apply some specific questions, for specific points, and we can certainly incorporate that in.
Okay, because I know that we have a stress on splash pads, which I love to sit there and just listen to the kids laugh and scream and play and all that stuff. But if we can join with the KISD, then
Yes.
that might be a real asset for the whole community.
Right, absolutely. So, and again, there's a lot of demand here for triathlon training, we just have some unique markets here. So, but again, one of the things we want to do is bring a consultant in that can specialize and has done these projects and help us dial into what type of facility that we're going to need over the next 10, 15, 20 years and try to build that. And then look at some funding alternatives. So we had programmed into the city's capital budget within the next 5 years a $6 million holding spot for this facility. So, we don't have $6 million earmarked yet to fund that. So we got some work to do to figure that out. And Is that budget adequate? I don't know. It may need to be more, it could be less, depending on what the recommendations come back at.
I also have quite a few friends at Comanche Trace that are lifeguard certified or whatever, that are retired but would love to volunteer if the pool was open. And it seems like other cities are doing it where there's a good group of a number of women or men that would like to volunteer, so that could be helpful in the budget process.
Sure.
Just passing that on.
Well, you can actually hire them, and they could be lifeguards too, official lifeguards.
You know, they
So-
would probably do it.
Because our workforce would have been one of our primary issues on keeping these extended hours open. We start to lose our college and high school
Right.
lifeguards about this time, as they start to bleed off into, band and track and two-a-days and all those
Well, I
kinds of
mentioned
things.
that to some of my friends, and they said, well, let us know.
Sounds
Get
like
them
you're
an
about to get a.
Not me.
Yeah, you.
No. No, I'm not.
My only recommendation is we get somebody else to do the filters besides the people that did the Olympic diving pool, so.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
You don't like green? It's a beautiful, beautiful shade of green.
We can do better than that. Yeah.
I did read an article that one of the divers said he didn't have a very complimentary word for how the indoor athletic or aquatic center smelled there. So, and then downtown Streetscape, we're trying to finalize a list of types of materials and siting locations to come back to y'all with a very specific list of costs and projects things. So, we're looking at everything from hardscape and landscape improvements, looking around the parking garage. We've got some opportunities to do some things there and to create more of a street presence, particularly at that intersection. And then additional, what we call street furniture. So those are benches, trash receptacles, those are the types of things that we would want to try to include and go downtown. So we talked about that for a while. It's been a little bit of a back burner item as we've cleared out other capital projects. And so we're putting our attention into this, so we'll be coming back. Council actually authorized us to make application to EIC for up to $650 months back. So we'll be coming back to you guys to finalize that out. Our direction was to go back and come up with more of an itemized, detailed list of what we'd be proposing, since it's a large dollar figure. So we're coming back to y'all with that
Great.
information as soon as we possibly can. So
Okay.
Ms. Bull's working on that.
Flashing neon sign on the parking lot to say that it's free parking.
We will put Stafford's
People coming in
Reserve.
from out of town don't know that.
true.
And
Yeah.
It seems underutilized.
It seems like we have those directional signs that say free parking, and they
Yes.
point to the garage.
Yeah.
Those brown signs.
Yeah, the brown signs.
Yeah. So we have some indicators. Maybe we need to put it on the
On
garage
the actual
itself.
structure.
Well, we did talk about at one point, because you got the old blue and white park, sign on the corner, talked about trying to take that down and doing something more stylized that matches our streetscape, so can do some more prominent
I'm like Paul, big
signage on the
old
garage.
retro arrow, flashing, something
Well-
you'd see in the 50s.
Well, the
Yeah,
one that
with
bring
the
you in on the
flashing light
side off
bulbs
Clay
and-
Street too, something to kind of draw your attention to come around that side and
Free
come in.
usually works.
Good.
Now, a lot of people just assume, particularly the way the garage is set up, it looks like a for-pay facility.
It does,
Does.
yeah.
And so,
Mhm.
that's your understanding. But, we talked about even canopies, awnings along the pedestrian areas, so that corner on the parking garage where you're coming into the development services side, having, something there that shows, hey, there's an entryway, doing some paving and some hardscape work as you're coming through the side. People kind of cut through that landscape area right now as they're going south towards Water Street, kind of dressing that area up in the back corner. And so I think that'll kind of help pop and draw people's attention there, and then some signage on the facility itself to do some things. So benches and landscaping and some things like that.
Any estimate when you're going to have that proposal?
I think Ms. Boyle's going to have that in a couple weeks.
Did you say it was $650?
We had $650 totally set aside for downtown streetscape. This project is only going to utilize maybe a couple $100,000 of that. So this won't utilize all
Have you
of
thought
that.
about having people donate that and put their name on the bench or whatever, the platters, and say it was donated by
Mhm.
so-and-so?
Yes,
Because people are very good in this city about that.
we
Or
do.
in memory of.
In
Right.
memory of, yeah, I know we've done it a lot at the hospital, it works out well.
Well, we do, and number of our benches along Water Street in the downtown area have been donated, so we do have that program, and we do welcome that. So, we'll be looking for the next 10 James Wilson sponsored benches.
Well, I've
That'll be
got
very
Kerrville
good.
emergency room 4, that's mine.
Okay. And all these park benches on downtown.
You'll see my name on there, memory of my granddaughter, but I would like to do something like that for,
Sure.
one, especially for either her or someone, a member of my family.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of people that would do that.
Probably worth publicizing.
Yeah.
We need to
Will do.
publicize it. These people are charitable in this city, I can tell you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Item 4? Or are you done? I'm sorry.
That was
I'm finished. Yes, sir.
Okay. Item 4, information discussing funding request.
Yes, the city council had actually authorized us to make application to EIC for an amount not to exceed $3 million. And with a lot of the attention and discussion, just wanted to bring it up to speed and let you know that this application is being formulated and is projected to come to you at your September meeting. With that, what it entails, the city really, it's kind of interesting because if you go back and look at it, the city started looking at reclamation back in it was the fruits of a joint workshop between the EIC and the council, gosh, I guess going 3 years ago. And there was a discussion about, hey, we need to look at water, and is there a way that EIC could help push forward a reclamation project? So with that, we began looking into that. Really, at the end of the day, the large chunk of the reclamation project, 4B could be used, but you need to go to a referendum process to do that. So we had really reversed that and said, listen, this is really a water supply utility kind of project. Part of the discussion that we had in that joint meeting was the discussion that EIC talked about doing the 3 categories and quality of life types of things, and the city said, hey, we'll step up and take care of the core utility side of it. So, we began this process to then look at feasibility, looking at utility fund, coming through to fund that project. At the end of the day, we came up with a project, a phase 1, with a pond to hold reclaimed water and a pump system to disperse that through a distribution system that would go to 3 primary new destination points. Those 3 new destination points are the Kerrville Sports Complex, Shawnee University, where they want to convert their fields to reclaimed water utilization. And that they want to do that because that helps with their field maintenance and makes them playable. Right now they're using potable water, and when they do that and we go into drought constriction, constriction is maybe a better word, then they can't water as much as they need to. And so those fields aren't safe and playable. We actually have had times in the last couple years where the Shriner University soccer teams are actually going to the existing field areas over by the landfill to play because those crush managed fields were actually in playable shape because they have reused water. So they've got baseball, they've got softball, they've got their athletic fields that they want to convert over. In addition to that, they need to convert over their irrigation systems throughout the interior of the campus. River Hill, they have 2 water wells, and they have a permit, a run-a-river permit. Their river permit is junior, so when we hit drought restrictions, the state water master will typically come through and begin eliminating access to that water permit. So a lot of times they're relying on their existing groundwater wells to try to keep that system up and keep their irrigation going. That golf course was nearly lost about 3 years ago in the peak of the drought that we had. So I don't know if anybody played that course in that time, but you would actually hit a drive.
You didn't want to.
It was the best time to play because you could get the longest drives of your life. It would hit, you'd see a rooster tail kick up, as your ball rolled up.
Well, you couldn't tell if you were in the fairway or not. That was the only
True.
problem.
Everything was a rub. Yeah.
It's brown here and brown
But
there.
anyway, so this distribution system that we're designing at the Reclamation Center factors in peak loads that we need for the existing customers that we have, in addition to adding those 3 particular additional users that are there. With that, 4B is a qualified use to help extend those distribution mains to those key locations. And so that's what that application will be about. Now, the city has got access to cash in the amount of about $18.8 million that are there, which was what I was describing. And so we've got bonds we've sold, we've got cash we've allocated, and then most recently we have entered into a loan agreement with KPUB where they've provided about $7.5 million of funding. Very good terms, very good rates for the city. So with that, should this grant be awarded, there's an additional $3 million that comes in on top of that. And then that would allow us to then repurpose those other funds towards other infrastructure projects that we have that go further out. We have a 10-year plan that has about $38 million of additional utility project work, of which there's another 15 million or so of additional projects that we need funding for above and beyond this water reclamation project. So it would allow some alternatives to be able to do some other things along those lines. So
what I understand, you're saying that, and that read the text, that if we got into another drought and the city needed the water, they would shut these people off.
Correct. One of the key issues and one of the delays in getting this application to you is that we've entered into letters of intent with Southern Gulf Properties and with Schreiner University. And what those letters of intent basically say is that the city would agree to cover the offsite extension of the distribution mains, and then they're going to provide all the on-site costs to store the water that's delivered and then to utilize it within their properties. And so with that, they'll come online and they'll be standard rate customers for us. So we were going through a process of negotiating those letters of intent, which I've included in here. So they'll be party to the application that comes to you. But the project's being designed to be able to accommodate the peak flows. And
before we find out, how would that have to be paid in one lump sum?
Well, we've got it
broken
broken into
from the EIC, 4B funds. How would that be paid? Would that be paid all at one time, or would it be periodically?
Well, you've got some options to fund that. We've broken that into 2 fiscal years, so $1.5 million for 17 and $1.5 million for 18 is what's included in the funding for the budget. And so we could either do, kind of like we've done for the projects, you could do annual or monthly set-asides or periodic set-asides to put the cash aside for those projects. So, so that's what we propose to do at this point.
The reason I'm asking is because we got the sports center coming up. We're going to have a monthly obligation there. And while we haven't, I don't know that we figured out exactly how much that's going to be yet. We're going to have to determine, and I think this is a great deal. I think it has to happen, no doubt about it. Because I was really ill when it was in that situation 3 years ago. But we need to look at how we can pay that out without writing a big check at one time.
Oh, sure. And again, your budget contemplates, there's some reserve funds that would come forward. Plus, it also contemplates, all the other debt service obligations that EIC is currently covering. So all that's factored into it, into the pro forma that's there. Plus, the other thing to keep in mind is that our budget modeling and our projected reserves take into account that you would spend every dollar that you've allocated in these fiscal years, which you typically haven't been spending all of that. So I think we're taking a conservative look at your budget and your finances moving forward. But I hear you, and then we'll look to begin to set up a set-aside protocol in terms of if the grant is funded, setting those funds aside.
Well, the reason I say this is we're going to have things that come up that are almost emergency that we're going to have to take care of along the way. And if we are strapped and can't do that, we get commitments on this commitment and the sports center, we may not be able to take care of things that are near emergency or emergency things that need to be cared for, quality of life or whatever it is.
Well, and I think that, from the EIC standpoint, the budgetary standpoint, that we're pretty conservative.
Yes.
And we still have cash. So I think even if something does come along, I feel like we've still got the potential and the opportunity to address those issues. Todd, I had one question on the map that you provided to us. Do you have that in front of you? Or?
Yes.
I just want to make sure I understand it, that from the proposed reuse pond, I see one new main, and that's going to Shrine University.
There are,
Well, I mean, but I'm starting there.
Another one to Riverview.
But are we gonna, where it ties into the existing Comanche Trace line, are you gonna have to run a new line parallel to that to get to River Hill?
yes, we'll actually run a parallel main that
Okay.
will
That's what I
parallel
thought,
the
so-
existing red line.
Right.
Okay, that's what I thought, it just didn't
Yes.
really show it on that map, so I
Right.
wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
When
But
I
from the,
was-
excuse me, just one second, but from the, we can tie into where it goes to the municipal golf course, you got capacity, is that right?
Mhm.
So that's not a new main all the way out to the ball fields?
Correct. That's
Perfect, okay, thank you, excuse me, Paul.
Todd, when River Hill was member owned, I think I owned one of the sandboxes. I was under the impression that in order to use affluent water, you had two separate lines. Is that correct?
You have to, TCQ is going to govern that. And the key issue is that, for the use of, because River Hill may decide to, and they're looking into utilizing the same system for both the groundwater that they're utilizing, plus, this project. And so as long as there's an air gap between the reclaimed water system and then the other systems that they're utilizing, they can do it. So what they would do is they'd have a watering protocol where they would basically flush the system out before they applied it to the greens. Because really, you can use this water on the roughs and on the fairways, and then the greens is really where that you have some concern with utilizing this because of the salts that are in the water. So the bent grass doesn't take to that very well. So their research that they're doing, and the processes and design that they're looking at are taking that into consideration. And we've had some conversations with TCQ too, and TCQ has reaffirmed that. So that's how their portion of the system is supposed to work.
Have we considered going to the parks on Singing Wind from this reuse? Or?
No, we hadn't contemplated that at this point.
Yeah, I was looking at the map and I just drove by there today and I was thinking, that might be a reuse area.
Right. We had contemplated also trying to make reuse water available to the school district for Peterson. They're playing football out there on the Peterson Middle School site now instead of at Tivy Stadium. So there's some interest there. The school district would be willing to make land available to dig a storage pond, a surface storage pond there. And then that pond could be used to irrigate both the football field as well as the tennis center. So if we do our renovation and work there, there's some additional opportunities to accomplish that. We have factored Peterson as well as tennis center into peak load demands for distribution for watering. So in the event that those systems can come online, we know we've got the ability to serve that.
Good.
Sounds good.
Any other questions on item 4?
I like the whole project.
I have one question that just came up. Gerry Wolf at 509 North Buckboard. I was out at the tennis center a week or two ago. I'm a little confused. How much grass is around the tennis center that needs to be watered?
Well,
There's not a lot of land that's being watered at this point. So when we do our plan, if we do our campus work, we're going to have areas that are going to be landscaped. They're going to require some irrigation.
So you're going to be adding land to be irrigated that now is not being watered.
Correct. We're going to want to install some landscaping out there to increase the aesthetic of that property. Should we do the tennis center project?
Thanks, Todd.
And it's going to go right past the tennis center anyway, so it's not going to really add any cost. So according to the map, and I can give you a copy of that if you'd like.
No, I've got it. I think
Okay.
I might add that. My question, like I say, I was out there, it's like, not that much ground here.
Yeah,
What-
it's a good question.
The new rendering does show what would need to be watered, and I don't know, would it be 20% more? As far as what you showed us in our budget meeting that time,
Yeah, potentially.
than what they have now?
Doesn't sound like an acre.
That's just a guess. Could be more than that.
Okay, item 5 is executive session. I think we do have some business to discuss in executive session, so let's see, we're going to adjourn into executive session at this time to discuss matters pertaining to sections 551.071 and 551.072. So at 4:29, we'll go to executive session.
Mike, do you need that in a motion and a vote?
I'm sorry.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Boring? Pardon? Was that nice and boring for you?
Okay, I call us back into session at 4:40. There was no action taken, no votes taken during executive session. Is there any other business for the board to address, corporation to address? If not, do I need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I adjourn this meeting.